Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and as always, joined by my wonderful co-host, Zach Ingo Finch. How you doing, Zach?
Well, on the third time of trying, we've managed to get through the intro, so doing better than we were 5 minutes ago. Yeah,
that's it. We are on our way. It is Transfer Tuesday, which might be a slightly cheerier episode than
it's
Match
difficult.
Review.
I feel like it's got to be more. There's got to be slightly. At least there's more energy in us. It's not completely sapped out of us dry like it was yesterday.
That said, it's still going to be many more outgoing rumours than incoming rumours, seeing as our board can't be bothered to have a meeting until I think tomorrow with the manager to deal with their transfer targets. So, yeah, I mean, what can you say about the strategy other than that?
Such a banter club. It's not even funny. It's just, again, you have to laugh because if not, you cry. Yeah, it's pretty bad, isn't it? I'm not gonna lie. Like we keep joking about who wants to come here, and it turns out we've been linked with pretty much nobody.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start with the one inbound we have had. A young Brazilian chap, Wellington, who has signed a pre-contract, so we knew he was coming, whose contract is now finalised and secured, but is currently injured. So, continuing with our wealth of signings that keep our medical room busy.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't blame him for faking the injury if he came in and saw. I think he was at the West Ham game from what I saw on social media. So, but in a boot. So who knows? Who knows if we will see him return to fitness by the end of the season, or if he will make his way into the first team, or if that's another one of these magical signings for the future that we seem to invest so much time in. And then the rest of the show is going to be talk of players. One more player we've been linked with, I guess, is and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, so I'm going to apologise in advance. But I think it's Joachim Kayasander, which I think is as good of a go as I'm going to be able to give it. I believe from the French third league, Zach.
Yeah, something like that. I know that he's like the under-19s French captain, so it's again one of these like we are going to go in for somebody who we don't. I guess similar sort of transfer to Wellington almost, where we kind of got somebody from the youth squad who knows if they're going to end up coming into the squad and being good, or if we're ever actually going to see them. Because I wouldn't be surprised if he just plays into the under-23s and goes elsewhere. But apparently, yeah, he was the best of the 2006 generation is what he is reported to be seen as, and to turn 18 before making the signing. So £5 million from Valenciennes. A centre-back is scheduled for a medical. So, yeah, like, it would be a positive transfer, I guess, but it's one I can't remember if VAFC FC with a team that like Sports Republic went in for.
I'm pretty sure it's another one of the Sports Republic teams.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know if that's the one they got rid of, right? Because there's definitely one that they sacked off.
No,
do you remember?
Not sure.
Yeah, I think it is Valencia's French. Yeah, so Valenciennes Football Club, commonly known as, is currently 20. Yeah, so last season it was 20th of 20th in the League 2. So you're right, it's in here. They are in League 3. So yeah, we are potentially looking to sign a transfer from one of our sister clubs.
Perfect. That's the multi-club network coming into play. Look, it might be great. It might be a fantastic signing for us. We'll withhold judgment, but I suspect at that age that he'll be heading to the under 23s first and go from there. So time will tell, I suppose. And then the rest of the list I have in front of me are all outbound transfers. And yeah, let's just start at the top and see how we get on. Bembro Diaz linked with Sheffield
I'll interrupt
United.
one, and this is my fault because I completely forgot to talk about this. Because we came up with a list because we decided to try and be a bit more organised for today because we are usually atrocious at that. And that is entirely down to me. I'll never put that on Greg. I'm the one that derails us with my rants. But I wanted to talk briefly about Kariu Matsuki, who's one of my favorite Japanese players who went over, who signed for Saints. I was very excited because he was a youth prospect. But obviously, he's been sent off to our Turkish club. He's doing pretty well out over there. He's had 14 appearances. He scored one goal in the league, and then in the cup, he also had one appearance and scored a goal. So, like, we actually have some players that just aren't with us that might be doing better. Like, bear in mind, we've also got Shea Charles doing solidly. So, yeah, it's not all doom and gloom.
I've heard it discussed on other podcasts about Saints, right? About whether we should bring Shea Charles back. And I guess let's briefly touch on it. Do you think it's worth ruining his season by bringing him back to
absolutely not. Let him mature in the Championship. Let Sheffield Wednesday do really well. If they want to pay us a few bob for him, I'm sure that Sports Republic will take it anyway, depending on what happens.
And if not,
inevitably,
we get back a well-rounded player for the Championship next year in a position
correct.
That we struggle with.
Do we genuinely think we're going to bring him back and he's going to step? Because I feel like pulling someone like that so young back into what I can only describe as the vitriol of the current Saints team, again, it's probably why they're not going to look to bring anyone in. I wouldn't be surprised if we see one transfer, if I'm totally honest, because I just feel like the vibe is that they know we're relegated at this point.
Well, and are circle back to potential plans and speculation on what I think we need to do after we go through our list of outbound rumours, let's say. So we've seen Ben Brereton Diaz apparently has a verbal agreement in place between the clubs to go back to Sheffield United, initially on loan and then with an option or an obligation to buy. Are we surprised by that at all?
It makes sense.
Worried?
I feel like if I was him, I'd have been parked outside Sheffield United Stadium for probably the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Hoping. It doesn't really surprise me. It just hasn't worked out here. He's just not... I don't know if it's because of tactics, man management, his performances, whatever. I feel like he tried a combination of all of those things.
Position. He's normally a striker, right? And we've only ever played him wide.
Yeah, I think Sheffield United have played him on left wing before. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's clearly just not worked out here.
Yeah,
and sometimes that's okay.
I think I mentioned to you before that, coming to the club, putting in that amount of appearances, and the only thing really of note that he'd managed to do all season was upset the entirety of Newcastle. For many teams, would probably considered one of the worst signings in their history, but actually for us, it might not even be the worst signing of this last transfer window. Bit upsetting, isn't it?
Yeah, you're not wrong, mate. In the nicest possible way to Tool Paul, I know he's had a few chances this time round, but he also had a big run of games under his belt the last relegation season and was unable to score a goal, and is yet to be able to score a goal, and has had some wonderful chances handed to his feet and head over the last couple of weeks, and has also not scored a goal. Ben Brereton Diaz, won a red card.
Well, we will move on to Tool Pool, who is next on my list. But first, we're going to take a break and have a word from our partners at Zencastr. So here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out a link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. Okay, yeah, so straight back into it, as alluded to before the break, Tool Paul, and I've seen him linked with a move back to Turkey, but to Besiktas, so sort of moving up the ranks, I guess, in terms of Turkish clubs.
Is it his level?
Yeah.
Because he was from Belgium, he played in the Belgian league beforehand and did all right, but he seemed to be able to score fine last time round. Are you telling me that he's not getting the service? Because most of the balls we have are going to him.
Yeah, I think that is exactly his level, and the Premier League certainly, from what I've seen, is not. And I have been preaching that from the hills for the longest time, despite the outcry from our fan base. So, yeah, I still don't see what any of the excitement was about.
I think our fan base wanted to see something different, and he offered that. Yeah. And I think that this is the same thing that I think about Bella Kotchap. I've seen ludicrous opinions of, he's going to shore up our defence at the back when he's played one game all season, barely played the season before, and was part of our relegation season the season before, where he was also unable to stop all of the goals going in.
Well, let's
he might
move on
be really, really good. He might come in and play really, really well, but it's one of those things where I think that everyone is just happy to see different players on the field that can offer not what we've seen so far. And the problem is that, we've seen the same with Sulemana. Oh, well, if he just gets the chance, he'll come good. He's had how many 90 minutes? He's had 90 minutes now. Probably the worst game I've watched ever. Maybe I keep saying that we
feels like
maybe
that's
worse
week
than the
in, week
Tottenham
out.
game. Like, I don't know how I feel about it, but I think there's just we have lots of players at the club that have had bit parts or haven't played much at all, and they might have shown a bright spark, and everyone kind of just wants to believe that if whichever manager, whoever's in charge, puts that player in, suddenly it'll click. Whereas I think that it's actuality, the only thing that's ever going to make it click is what Martinez said in a post-match interview yesterday after Man U versus Liverpool, where they asked him what's changed, and he literally just tapped his head and just went mentality, or the mind is what he actually said, which is there needs to be a turning point. And the problem is I just don't think it's going to happen the rest of the season. So I'm of the opinion that the reason that people are so hyped about Onuachu is because it's just like they wanted to see a striker that's different in that position. It's the same people that think Ross Stewart's going to come back from injury and start scoring for fun.
Actually injured. Speaking of Bella Kotchap, then let's move on to him. He obviously had the move knocked down to a failed medical previously to I can't remember exactly which club he was trying to go to. Was it Wolfsburg?
I think it was Frankfurt, and then he also had a move turned down to Bayern Munich, which, if I remember rightly, was just due to finances. And I think that's what is the thing that broke the camel's back and upset him the most.
Do you see him getting a move this January? I mean, I'm sure he'll be looking, certainly based off the interviews given.
Based on everything he said, yeah. Obviously, Jurek said he's more part of his plans than not. He's put him on the bench the last 2 games. He needs to be playing regular football to probably get the move that he actually wants. I don't think he really cares where he gets it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised. I
probably see him against Swansea, right? Cup rotation.
Surely. But it's one of those things where I wouldn't be surprised if he did. And I don't really hold any huge ill will to the guy. I don't think that he's gone about the way that he's gone about everything the most professional, but I also don't think that being completely sidelined for the basis of picking your favourites is a good way to run your club either. However, he doesn't seem to have his head here. His conversation is all about to get a move elsewhere out of Southampton. Use him while he's here, but I wouldn't be surprised if an opportunity came for him to go elsewhere. He wouldn't immediately snap it up, and the club wouldn't also want to just send him away. I don't think he's going to come in the back and suddenly we're going to stop shipping goals for the rest of the season. It would be lovely to think that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes. But it is what it is, isn't it? At this point.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of bad signings from the previous window, Maxwell Cornet likely to go back to West Ham. I mean, as I understand it, they actually have to recall him. We can't just send him back. So
I think they probably want to take him back to sell, right? Surely, because I think they want to take him back and put him out for loan or sell because he's not getting a job here, is he?
No,
I don't know what's gone on.
It's actively been stated in press conferences that the ideal situation would be for him to go back to West Ham. Just
another one that's just not worked out. We
promising.
It was a last minute signing. We wanted to get something that he had a season or 2 of being really exciting, and then every time he played for us did not really a lot. And then was part of that team that what was it? The Bournemouth game, which was the really bad Bournemouth game. And since
Stoke,
then,
he struggled against Stoke.
Yeah, which again, if you're struggling against Championship opposition, that's what it is. I'm not surprised by it. Put it that way.
The other loan space being used up, Big Les, reportedly staying, which is good. Obviously, partially at fault for the first goal against Brentford, but there's definitely promise there. Just I think he needs an experienced head alongside him. So,
well, he's put some stuff out in the media, right? He's had in his interview and said that he grew up a lot over the last 5 months, but he wants to put in a fight, and for the manager that's actually willing to play him, which is I think says a lot behind the scenes of what was going on with the previous regime. And regardless of I know that everyone's anger realistically should be directed at the ownership. I think getting rid of Russell Martin was probably the right decision for the club overall, but also, it gives him an opportunity. I think that a combination of not really playing a lot of games and then suddenly being put into extremely pivotal roles during a time in our season where nobody has confidence isn't great for anyone. But if he's going to put up a fight and actually try and play out the rest of the season playing the best he can, I'd prefer that to somebody who doesn't want to, or we ruin a really good player in Shea Charles by bringing him back to replace him, you know?
Mm. And then a rumour that I have seen, but admittedly not from many sources, and the main source I found is a Newcastle-based newspaper linking Newcastle with Tyler Diblin. Do you see that one come into fruition? I'm not
I
convinced by it.
I did. I mean, you know, they've taken Livramento. They're a good squad. I don't I don't see how any of these clubs will see him as the finished product yet. And I have a feeling that a lot of them will try and offer sums of like sort of 15 to 20 million. And we're not going to want to sell him for that.
No.
And like we've got him till 2026 with an option to extend. They want to give him a better contract to sort of reward him. If you're, you know, I think we've discussed potentially his future for a long time and we've heard and denied about it. But like, does he want to get regular club football or not? If he does, probably worth staying here. If he's decided that he wants to make a money move and go elsewhere, then maybe he'll go elsewhere. Maybe Sports Republic will sell him. But that goes back completely on the rest of their BS philosophy when they fired Russell Martin, which is apparently all about the youth. When was the last time you saw Sam Amu, mate?
Yeah, that's the drum we're going to keep banging, honestly. Ludicrous. Okay, and one final one from the list before I pivot segment 3 into some discussions. Carl Walker-Peters, if we're going to sell him for anything, this will be the window. Otherwise, he's going to walk away for free at the end of the season. Which of those two outcomes do you think is more likely? You know, the contract's been on the table and he hasn't signed it yet.
He's
I
not
don't
going
see
to
any
sign
reason
it. We're
why
not
he would.
staying up. I doubt he's going to go to the Championship. If he goes on a free, he'll have a bigger selection.
Agreed.
It depends entirely on where he's at. If he wants to try and put in the effort to the end of the season and say he's done the best he could possibly do as a servant to the club and saw his contract from start to finish, happy days. If an offer comes in that Sports Republic deem acceptable, I wouldn't be surprised if they let him go, and then it'll be down to him.
What's that benchmark, do you think? Do you think even as low as like 5 million does the job? Because it's better than nothing at the end of the season.
Maybe. It would be really, really sad, but also like I don't think that if I'm Kyle Walker Peters, have the club done enough to convince me to stay here?
No, not even a little
No,
bit.
not even slightly.
If Carl goes in January, fair. I don't have no bad words to say about him. He's still consistently one of the only players that puts in 100% when he's on the pitch, and you can see the frustration in him when these games happen the way they are. And yeah, if he goes in January, it'll be sad for sure, but I wouldn't at all be surprised, and I wouldn't blame him in the slightest. So
no, that's kind of where I'm at. It's more of a sort of ebb of sadness more than anything else. Is that thank you for staying for as long as you have. I guess you could have easily gone before we went down to the Championship, and you helped us out a whole bunch there. Adapted to any new manager he's come under quite quickly and done his best regardless. And I feel like there's a lot of people that criticise me. Oh, he's bad. I'm like, I feel like if you look at most of the balls that have actually ended up in the box for the last couple of games, maybe even year, has been balls delivered by him. So to kind of call him, out and say that he's not trying, I think is a bit ludicrous. But yeah, I'm with you, mate. If he goes, it will be sad, but I bear him no ill will and will always thank him for being what can you call a fantastic servant for the club.
Absolutely. Okay, after the break, I want to pivot it to some speculation of our own about what we need. But first, a message from our partners at the Global Sports Podcast Network.
The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up, broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts.
Okay, so if all the rumours are to be believed, some of them stronger than others, but potentially we're going to see Toolpool go and Cornet go and Brereton Diaz go. Now, whilst that collectively amounts to not a huge amount of input, that is 3 of our forward players, one of which who has been our main forward player for the last 3 games, for better or worse. So surely we need to sign something up top to fill that gap, right?
What do you mean? You've got Archer, there's Sulemana there, Adam Armstrong.
Yeah.
And then in the midfield is probably where we need to shore up, where, as much as I think it would be better for Shea Charles to stay at Sheffield Wednesday, I wouldn't be surprised if they did decide to draw him back, and then you've got that extra option in midfield.
Yeah.
They might. I genuinely, I'm struggling to believe us bringing in anyone. Genuinely, because, again, when we discussed it before, who wants to come into this? Who, and the only people that we would bring in who would want to come into this right now are going to be people that we're then stuck with when we go down. That's kind of my mentality around it, because if you're picking to go to a club that's tanking this bad, unless you know you're going to go join essentially a championship club and you want to be part of something, have no idea what, because we don't even know if the manager's going to be here at the end of the year. What? Who comes in unless it's a young loan player? Unless we do like a classic Saints, be like, we've managed to take Broja off of Everton and bring him in as a striker, because we love it. We love bringing back old players, or this is where I'm genuinely baffled as to what we're going to bring in, because of this, unless it's going to be some really outlandish names from Italy that none of us have ever heard of, that Jurek is aware of, that he thinks that are gettable, that are someone that would happily play maybe in both leagues, might be players that have worked under him in the beforehand. There will have to be deals that are extremely shrewd and not cost a lot of money, which, to be honest, is probably what's caused a lot of these problems in the first place. We did a big statement signing with Ramsdale, but then we filled up the rest of the team with basically a bunch of, as we discussed before, players from teams that were relegated and extras, and that's resulted in us having a bunch of players that now have been relegated twice in 2 years, and a bunch of extras who don't play. So that's like my heart would say you need to shore up someone up front, and you need to shore up someone in midfield, and you need to get good signings that will be aware of the situation, want to stick it through for next year. That's what my heart would want, but my head says we are going to get some random Jurek signings that, if they do well, happy days. If they don't, they're probably not going to be as bothered, because they're going to get them on the cheap. That is how I see it playing out. I don't know where you're at with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we need at least. I mean, if Torpal's going and the way we've been using him, we need someone you can aim the ball at, which is not really any of our forward players at the moment.
How do you know they're not just banking on Ross Stewart coming?
Well, because his legs are made of sticks. I don't know.
I don't even know what injury he's currently got at this point. I swear, him, Smallbone, and Stevens at this point are just, we're being told they're being injured, and I'm like, I have no idea what their problems are, but I guess maybe that's.
Look, I just hope
meant
they
to be
pay
private,
our medical room staff well, because they are one of the most overworked teams in the Premier League, and purely of our own downfall as well. Not because we're particularly injury prone or have been hit with a massive injury crisis, but we just sign injured players that is, or injury prone players like Stewart, Lallana, Juan Larios is still on the sideline somewhere, right?
Yeah, when you're talking about attackers though as well, remember we've got a Dozy on loan that we could bring back. We've also got players that are on loan. They brought back Don Ballard. I very much doubt they'd put him up top, but why not? At this point, you even said yourself, mate, just stick the kids out.
Yeah, no, I'm fully behind it. If you want to replace it with Don Ballard and Sam Ammo for the rest of the season, you've got my full backing, and it doesn't matter. If there's a difference between sticking out the first team and them not putting an effort in and getting battered 5-0, and sticking the kids out who at least put their all into a game, and if they get run all over, at least Premier League experience of some description. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
I don't think any of us do, and I think this is the problem. Is usually you'd be able to pick some targets and be like, this is who we should go in for, and we can all lament the idea that Liam Delap went to Ipswich instead of here, whether it was down to finances, whether it was down to vibes. You can't. There's no point crying over spilt milk. We need to make ourselves an attractive prospect, and we haven't done a very good job of it. I think, as you pointed out yesterday, I think a big problem would be solved by actually having people in charge of the footballing and maybe just an overhaul of our recruitment. Because I don't see. I could see potentially maybe. So here we go. So I've had my heart, I've had my head. Let's go realism. So realism is they get in the room and they shove down a list of people they want to bring in. And Jurek goes, absolutely not. I don't know who any of these people are. They have an argument about it for a while. They maybe pick one off of their list of random people they've seen in YouTube clips. Jurek picks somebody he's worked with previously who could maybe do a stint in a Premier League club, and that's who we bring in. If we're lucky, we don't lose players like Matty Fernandez and struggling here, Jack Ragg. Anyone else we don't want to lose? Tyler Dibling, maybe.
If Peters is going to be out the door either way.
Yeah.
So, look, Adam Armstrong will do a job for us in Championship next season.
Yeah. So this is the thing, right? Is it's like trying
Cameron Archer, I see huge promise in.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not quite fulfilled that yet, but I would argue more so than any of the rest of our attacking line. So
here's a random wild card boomerang to throw at you, mate. Should we have kept Che Adams?
I think people look back with rose-tinted glasses.
There it is.
Because he took 10 chances to score a goal every time, at least, minimum. I just don't think that he was the decisive striker that we want. Like, better the devil you know, maybe, but also he wasn't very good, even in the Championship. So people see that as a big mistake, but I really see that as a big wage off the book. Arguably nobody's scoring goals this season, so maybe someone who could score a goal sometimes is the answer. But
right, so what I'm hearing is Broja, Ings,
no, and
Nathaniel Klein to replace Kyle Walker-Peters. Perfect. I joke, mate. Like, I think whatever. Hopefully, we can be excited about. Even if it's an unknown. We had an unknown come in who no one really knew in Matty Fernandez, and he's turned out to be a brilliant player so far this season. That was 1 in 10. Maybe if we're sending 3 off, 1 in 4 might be really good. Who knows? We've got a lot of loan players that might come back to the club and do a solid for us next season as well.
I had a conversation at the weekend with one of my friends that deeply upset me when we were talking about how poor the recruitment's been. And he was talking about some of the players that we were linked with. And he's like, feels like the idea is there, but we're just like one off the mark. Because don't forget, we were linked with Goncalo Ramos and Gakpo. Imagine having them in the front two.
We have sad. Been, don't get me wrong. But also at one point, do you remember I told you that we were linked with Quincy Proms, who subsequently ended up going to the Russian league and I think was going to be arrested for, I want to say, drug smuggling in Holland, and then instead went to Dubai on a training camp and then got arrested there for running someone over. So swings and roundabouts, mate. Sometimes we don't get all of the golden gooses, but sometimes there are people we go for that it's probably a good thing we didn't get them. Just anywhere in the middle would be nice, I guess, right? Just maybe lessons will be learned, maybe they won't be. We aren't in control of that. We can only talk about what's in front of us. And it just, for me, doesn't look like the January transfer window is going to be as exciting, other than the fact that we might get rid of some of the players that clearly their time has come to an end here,
Yeah. Well, we tried to make it more positive.
We might have some more information come next Tuesday about incomings, and we can talk less about all of the players that are potentially leaving, unless you're really excited about all of the players that are leaving because of the way the season has gone. So theoretically, Greg, it might not be a positive for us, but for some of our listeners, they're like, I hate every single one of them.
Thank you very much for listening to us anyway. We'll be back tomorrow with Wildcard Wednesday. I think I've got something lined up.
I'm very excited.
And thank you very much. As always, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We will see you next time.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.